Good morning.
Hello. Morning.
Okay, let's get started. We're at time. So we have a few announcements. They're in read only unless anyone wants to go through any more details. No, okay, great. So I had just a brief discussion point whilst I have a few of you here. On this year's strategy sort of MR proposal, firstly, if you haven't read through that, please have a read through. I'd like to merge it this week because then we can use next week to set OKRs just in time for Q2 starting in May. One of the items, though, I have proposed is to essentially reduce effort to release managers. So I know that the last few months of release management have been harder than they previously were. Many different reasons for that, but one of which is that we just have more stuff that we have to kind of manually deal with. Now, as part of having this an OK or having this a kind of a strategy item and OKR, it will be great to be able to measure that we are making some improvements here. So I wanted to just see if anyone had any thoughts around how could we measure like release management efforts and like and then show some hopefully some reduction in effort.
So when you're talking about effort, Amy, are you talking about manual charts or things that are, I don't know, outside of the regular schedule? What are you thinking about?
I mean, it sort of depends which stuff we think is the most painful. I suppose the stuff within our kind of world is the more reasonable to assume we can change in a quarter. So my guess, and there's probably a few ways we can do this. My guess is that some of the pain we see in release management has always been that way, and that now we're doing more frequent deployments and deployments are faster. We see these things a lot more. So it could be that we focus on, like, say, I don't know, the top 3 most painful things in a deployment, or the three we see most frequently, or some way of actually taking things that we have to retry or are you have to kind of manually babysit somehow to eliminate those.
So sorry.
No, go ahead.
So things like having to retry Gitly when it fails, or Ansible when it fails to get facts, that comes to mind. But that's not the most painful, because when something like that fails, you can see it. It shows up in announcements. But more painful is when something fails a second time, because then it doesn't show up. So then you only realize when, like enough time has passed that you think something should have passed or failed by now. So then you go and check. So I think what is more painful is things that are not that visible. So like, multiple failures in the same pipeline, or sometimes you need to wait for a pipeline to complete, but that's a pipeline that you don't get notifications for. But now I can't think of any examples. I think it's like when you're tagging a release and you have to wait for the command and the pipeline to complete, but that's like a irregular pipeline. We don't have notifications for it, stuff like that.
Because you wait for the packages to be uploaded and there's nothing that tells you that all the packages are on package cloud.
That's a good example as well. So like the fact that it keeps failing and then you have to go and manually retry slowly so that you don't overload the packet server. Yeah.
So data would be the best way of measuring progress on like how the state of things right now and how things are improving. We know we've consistently found that quite difficult. This data comes in from different places, but what are people's general thoughts around having a more of a like sort of release manager assessment? I mean, it's very, very individual, but I mean, could we use something like at the end of each week, the release managers kind of give a rough score of the state of the week and highlight particular pain points, and we track that? Like, super tough because it's not based on maths, it's based on kind of gut feel, which means it'll be easy to kind of bias it.
Seems like a support group for release managers. Yeah, I was going to try and suggest something that we can actually try to measure. I'm supportive of this effort. So before we go into the things, like there might be things that are not really, that doesn't surface from things that we can get out from numbers, and it's important to keep track also of this. That being said, this might be harder to prove when we want to say now we want to show an improvement. So I was thinking about numbers that we can show up, that we can collect and show what changed there. So something that came to my mind is doing some API scraping on our pipeline, and we can check things like number of things that we retried, so job that got retried. And this is a number we can show. It tells us something. Another thing that I would like to play with is checking the deployment statistics on the release metadata project, because on that project we are tracking deployments per environment. And when something fails, we record the failure. So we can have a very high level of review on how things were bad during a week by counting the amount of time between failed deployment and the next successful one. These are our numbers, right? So we can, and this is kind of, it should be a good proxy for the effort that we're trying to do with scoring how long an incident is preventing us from deployment, because more or less it gives us the same information and is not manual, which is probably the most important thing.
Yeah.
Another thing could be just counting number of deployment-related incidents declared, because even if it's a quick one to resolve, it still takes effort from release managers. They have to figure out that there was an incident or something blocking a deployment, make the painful decision of engaging in an incident declaration and everything that came out of it. So this all looks like good numbers that I would like to bring down as an improvement from what does it mean to be a release manager.
So like today there was two times where the issues we have with the Kate's workloads repo happened, like two different issues that we know about. And I was like, oh yeah, I see that. I know how to fix that. I'll go and fix that myself. Should I be opening an incident for them, even though it's like a 5-minute, like 2-minute, 1-minute fix, just for bookkeeping purposes? Because I kind of don't, to be honest, but because it's more bookkeeping than the actual fix for the incident. But I don't know if maybe I should be I guess the good thing is it will be capturing the times these jobs failed, but I feel like Prometheus, I really think if we could somehow get Prometheus metrics about our jobs and pipelines, either from like GitLab itself, or we have to write, expand the delivery exporter or something, I think would be really useful. I think being able to use metrics to quantify I think you already mentioned it, Alessio, like job retries in general, like over time, like and stuff like that. Like we're really just getting more metrics out of our CI stuff so we can visualize it a bit better. Because at the moment, you got to kind of go to, like, for Kate's workloads, you got to go to that pipeline in ops and like the pipeline view and go scroll down through the history, and you can kind of get, it's really hard to visualize just over the last 24 hours, how many jobs retried, like actually retried. So it'd be, you know, the number of jobs that were in a, I don't know how to put it in metric terms, but just the amount of jobs that are retried. Because yeah, I just don't have a good enough visibility into that. I know it's a lot, but it'd be good to quantify that.
So should we wrap that into our plans as well then, right? So it sounds like we roughly agree that we want to know how long we're blocked for and how many retries we are doing, and exactly how we measure that, or where, if we proxy that data, like we can figure that out. But we maybe start the quarter and say, what is the number of these two things? And then we aim to reduce them. Awesome. To answer your question, Graham, it sort of depends. Like, yes, from a bookkeeping point of view, it is really helpful to have an incident for these things because it does give us a way of measuring it. If it's a 5-minute thing, the overhead of the incident is probably greater. So I'll leave it to be your judgment call, but I think it's something which, particularly if it's not something that we exclusively can fix ourselves, it's really helpful. It's where it sort of came about from, is opening an incident as a kind of first thing. Like say like QA tests failing is really makes it much easier for us to work with quality. So if it is something where actually we are going to in the future need to put a project about it, work with reliability, or do something a bit bigger, then it is helpful to at least have some incidents that we can point to for that.
One of the big ones I don't do at the moment is when ops.gitlab.net goes down for its daily upgrade. That happens during my shift. And so I guess before I came on, no one was doing releases in APAC, so it didn't matter. It breaks the pipeline pretty much every day.
Do you want to just open an issue for that, Graham, about proposing, because we already kind of know the solution for that is that it's not a single node ops instance, so it doesn't have to go down, right? We could do a zero-time deployment. We just haven't done the work to ops to make it so. It doesn't hurt anyone apart from us, so no one's prioritized.
And it's not just like, oh, it went down, the job just failed and you have to retry. Everything goes weird. Everything gets marked as skipped. I got to go back and like retry random jobs to like poke it enough for the directed acrylic graph to, you know, like the jobs just go into a bad state. I can't even click them manually. Everything in the pipeline gets marked as skipped. So it's like the whole coordinated pipeline is lost. And then I have to go back and run like the first prepare job again. And then eventually it somehow unwedges itself. Like it's not a trivial thing. And yeah, I haven't done I'll open an issue about that. But that's
Does it happen when we upgrade the runners? Because if it marks a job as skipped, is because in theory, there's no runners able to pick it up. So it should go from pending to skip.
Yeah, I don't know. And I don't know if it's because we take down ops, the runners disconnect, and then ops comes back up, but maybe the runners just haven't had time to reconnect, and maybe that. Anyway,
let's discuss this in the issue. Yeah.
Yeah, let's figure out a solution for that for sure. Awesome. Great. I'll continue on issues and things for that one then, so we can get closer to improving things. Now, I admit I haven't updated any of the deployment blockers yet in the last weeks or so, but Ruben, as release manager, is there anything that we need to take action on that you know of at the moment for MTTP?
MTTP is rising. I think that's due to an increased number of incidents recently. But I don't think we can do anything about it right now other than just the regular corrective actions that we anyway plan.
I do have a question about something that we worked in the previous weeks, which is the problem with the pipeline that generates assets. When we had this incident where, so is my understanding correct that nothing is happening on that? We are just betting that pipelines are, that assets are okay?
I suspect it's going to break again next time someone changes these assets, which is not often. And I do suspect it's
no,
going to
but
break
it
again.
doesn't have to change the asset. That's the problem.
Right.
So
Okay.
every time we compile it, if this is an upstream problem from the specific dependency that is doing weird things, then it may remove that asset from the generated one.
Are we not? Oh, I thought we were going to fail the build if it was missing the assets.
Yes, but who's working on this? I mean, I said the front end, we're making some proposals. We were just, I asked them, do we have a validation to figure out that this is actually fixing the problem? And to me, seems like the conversation went nowhere.
Okay, let's follow up on that then.
That's why I was asking if we had other incident like this, or if it never happened again, or yeah, that's the question.
Okay, yeah, let me follow up on that. Sorry, I thought people were working on that already.
Just also on the discussion of mean time to production, we, at least in APAC, I've lost a few days due to the database, CI database provisioning, like ongoing work, because they're doing very big, very long, complicated change requests. It's not a big issue, but it has been another point which probably
put the label on
caused...
those as well, Graham. So CRs can also have the deploy blocked label, and it just means.
Oh, okay.
One thing I want to start thinking about is, as we increase the number of deployments and as reliability grows, we're going to reach a point where the overlap of deployment and infra changes becomes like a real contentious point. So I want to actually start trying to map that out so we can figure out, like, I think what's going to need to happen is we'll need to work with reliability and actually assess what's safe to change in parallel and what's not. So for anything like that, if you are blocked on any CRs, even if they're scheduled, please put the deploy block labels on, and then we can point to it and say, like, you know, this one blocked us for 10 hours or however long we end up with.
Well, one question from a total outsider. Do you extract statistics from your add labels automatically to this kind of issues when things happen? Okay.
Not really. In some cases, I can show you some of the dashboards. Some of it goes into Sisense, but no, not as easily as we should be able to.
Okay.
Also, I mean, labels are unreliable in that they're manually added. That's really where our challenge comes in, is
Okay.
that's the bit that's the most difficult to get consistent. So.
Thank you.
Awesome. Is there anything else anyone wants to bring up on this recording?
Yes. So we've got approval from the security infrastructure group for making release metadata public. I'm wondering if we should go ahead and do that. I put the link to the issue.
Public, you mean company public? So still on Ops?
Yeah, sorry. Company public, yeah, as in available to all members who have an account on Ops. Yeah.
Awesome. Great. Yeah, let's take a look through the issue and figure out a plan for making the change and making that known about.
Okay. Yeah, cool.
Awesome. Thanks for pushing that through, Ruben. That's nice change. Awesome. Anything else anyone wants to bring up on the recording?